Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So it's been quite a while since I put out my last video. And because of that, in this video I want to give you guys a tank update to let you guys know what's been going on lately with my reef. Well, I have some good news to share, but unfortunately I have bad news as well. So let's start with that. About 4 months ago, I found out that this tank has acro-eating flatworms. The signs of them first came from this guy, the rose millie. I noticed this colony, the colors on it became very dull and faded out, and the polyps were severely retracted. I also noticed this same issue going on with a few other colonies as well. These millies, that tenuous back there, this deep water acro, even this deep water acro, and this purple tip e-flow. I found bites on them, and I also found eggs, of course. So because of that finding, I went straight to work and I went ahead and dipped them. I took off the colonies off their base and I dipped them in a freshwater bath, as strange as that sounds. The freshwater bath is a method that I've used for many years, and thankfully I have never run into any issues with it. I find it to be very effective at treating the acro-eating flatworms that are on the colony, keeping in mind that the dip doesn't do anything to the eggs themselves. The eggs still need to be manually removed after a dip like that. So that's exactly what I did. After the dip, I went ahead and I removed as many eggs as I can possibly find. And after that treatment, every day I would go in to the tank with a small little baster, and I would blow onto the corals, and sometimes I would see little baby flatworms or adult flatworms detached from the colonies. Other times I would see nothing. But needless to say, I was at it every single day for a good 2.5 to 3 weeks. Fortunately, thanks to this blue Springer damsel, it became a huge help in keeping the numbers under control, because every time that I went in there with a turkey baster and I blew on the coral, if a flatworm came off of the colony, that fish would be right there ready to eat it. Another preventative measure that I recently did for this tank is I added a 6-line wrasse, which can't really find it right now. It's probably swimming in between the rocks. But anyway, he's in here, and I will say that within 3 weeks of adding this fish, I have noticed a noticeable improvement in the overall health of the corals that just seemed affected by the flatworms. So that was the issue with the acro-eating flatworms. Thankfully, the corals are healing nicely. They're on their way back, and I'd like to think that the numbers are once again under control. We shall see. Moving on to the next update. Also bad news, unfortunately. When I was in the midst of dealing with the acro-eating flatworms, I also noticed that my green torch was also starting to look a little strange. Upon closer inspection, I found Euphyllia-eating flatworms. How they even happened in this tank is just beyond me. I don't know where they came from, but it happened. So, needless to say, I went right to work on that colony. I dipped it, not in fresh water, but in a regular coral dip. I did manual egg extraction. I scraped off as many of the eggs as I can possibly find. And I just started basting away in between the heads of the torch. This colony is kind of in recovery mode right now. I'm hoping that it's gonna bounce back, but we'll see what happens. So the next recent change that happened to the tank was me replacing the media inside the Avast marine ozone reactor, as well as the carbon inside the secondary chamber. It was about time for me to change it. I want to say the media in both chambers were getting close to about a year old, so it was about that time to replace it. Besides, the original media that I had in here was getting pretty yellowish orange, and despite multiple attempts to clean it, it would never really look clean enough. So I figured it was time to change the media and just start anew with brand new media. The other change that I recently did was I replaced the conductivity probe. That was getting to be about 2 years old. I've had great outcomes with the GHL conductivity probe. In my last tank that I've had, I mean, we're going back 6 years ago, I ran a probe for almost 3 years and it just didn't give me any issues. But in this tank, I figured instead of waiting for a problem to happen, why not be proactive about it and just change it? So that's exactly what I did. The other recent change that happened to the tank was the addition of a second Versia stream pump. I added this pump because I wanted to just get a little bit more flow going through the corals. I had some pieces that were just starting to get a little large and they were blocking the flow path. So I figured, why not just add a second Versia stream pump, because it's small, compact, and it puts out a decent amount of flow for its size. I went ahead and I just mounted it to the back wall of the glass, and I programmed both pumps to run in alternating mode. So when one is running at its max flow, the other's at its minimum flow, and they just alternate back and forth in that same repeating pattern. As far as how I connected it, I did something a little bit different. Instead of using the dedicated power supply to power the second pump, what I ended up doing is I went to Amazon, I bought a 12-volt power splitter cable, and I am now using one power supply to power both pumps. How I'm able to get away with that, I do not run both pumps at 100%. That is not their full speed. I have them set to a lower flow speed, and because I have them running in an alternating flow pattern, they never pull more wattage or more volts than what the 12-volt power supply can deliver. That's how I'm doing that. So for the last part of the update, I wanted to just point out these two new additions. This is the Palmer's Blue Millie. Even though I have the colony already, I figured why not buy a second one? I like the coral that much. And I also picked up a Cops Millie. It's like a yellowish orange looking Millie. I'm hoping they will do well in this space. They are in the direct flow path of my Vortec MP40. So I'm gonna monitor it over the next couple months, see if they settle in nicely. If I start to see that they encrust and the polyps are still waving like they are right now, then that's a good sign. I'm going to keep them there. And I also wanted to point out that if this torch ends up doing a full recovery, then it might quite possibly start stinging this Millie. I'll have to closely monitor it and see what happens. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments for me, go ahead and put them down below. If you like what you saw today, don't forget to hit the thumbs up icon and subscribe. Until next time guys, take care.